Hola, bienvenidos. Welcome to the Americas Table, hosted by the Georgetown Americas Institute. I'm Muni Jensen, political analyst and Georgetown graduate, here to talk to leaders of the region who have transformed their vision into reality. Today's turn is for Blanca Treviño, CEO of Softtek, the largest IT vendor in Latin America. Blanca is a true powerhouse known for her civic engagement and her commitment to the global promotion of the IT service industries in Latin America. As president, Blanca has positioned Softtek as a key provider of IT services in the hemisphere. Founded almost 40 years ago as a small startup, it now provides services to more than 400 large companies in over 20 countries. She's an advocate for women and a national example in her native Mexico and around the world. She speaks on leadership and innovation and is without question one of the most influential executives in Latin America, serving in multiple boards around the world. In town, to receive an award for civic engagement at the Inter-American Dialogue, Blanca has agreed to join us at the table to share her experience as a tech entrepreneur, as a woman in business, and as an active member of her community. Bienvenida, Blanca Treviño, CEO of Softtek. It's a pleasure to have you at the Americas Table.
No, thank you so much. It is my honor to be here. Thank you so much. Gracias, profundas gracias.
So you are a founding member of Softtek and have led the company for over 20 years. I'm sure there are a lot of stories there. Today, it is the largest IT vendor in the Americas, and it services over 20 countries. It's a 20-year-old company. Tell us a bit about the company and how it got started and where it is now.
Well, it is impressive. It has been fun. Let me start by saying that. When you've been part of the company since the very beginning, just like you mentioned, there are so many stories about the company that you always want to share. But to your point or to your question, we are come after so many years, more than 20, close to 30. I think we have been evolving in the kind of services that we provide. But today, I like to say that what we're doing is it's helping organizations in their digital transformation. And I think we all agree how important this is today. So as opposed to what we did at the very beginning when you were really supporting them in having more efficient operations or more reliable operations, today is more about competitiveness. It's more about that is the kind of services that we offer. We do have presence in more than 20 countries, like you said, but we like to think that in each of those countries, we're more like a local company supporting that local market, but obviously leveraging the global capabilities that we have. The US market is our largest market, and we support the US from many different countries. We have delivery centers in India, in Brazil, in Argentina, and certainly in Mexico.
So we have to talk about the women in tech. You have been a trailblazer, you've been an example, and you have really broken the glass ceiling of women entrepreneurs in Mexico and Latin America, but also in women in tech. What do you do specifically today to try to, aside from your example, to try to spread the participation of women in tech in such an underrepresented sector?
You're right, and it's underrepresented, and it's ironic because today that there's so much demand for IT professionals, it will be a shame to not be able to really leveraging all that talent. If you ask me about that, being very honest, for me it was so difficult when we started the company. Being an entrepreneur, it was so much difficult than being a woman. So much more difficult that those early years for me, I didn't even have time to think, oh, I'm also a woman. It's more about positioning Mexico and Latin America in this IT space. Having said that, I cannot deny that there's this underrepresentation, and what we do, it's obviously within the company, what we try to make sure is that we open those opportunities for women as a company. And myself, personally, what I do is I participate in different forums, inviting other women to say, this is fun, you should join this, there are so many different opportunities. But today, it shouldn't be that way. And I think it's going to change, if you ask me. It is changing because the need is there, the demand for IT professionals is there, and we should not necessarily pay attention to gender or anything else. It's just about the talent. I truly believe that the most successful company is the one that it's been able to attract the most experienced or bright talent. And it's no matter the gender, no matter nationality.
And do you see a progress in Mexico and in your the countries where you operate in terms of women participation?
I do think so. I do believe it is that way. And probably it's one of the very small good things about COVID, because women that probably years ago, they were not necessarily able to go to the office because they have kids or whatever. Today, in this kind of industry, it's easy to do that kind of work from home. And that changed, that today I think things will not go back to where they were. So women will have that chance. And we see that, yeah, we do. They have a better way to balance their lives and take care of their families and still work. This is a let me use again, fun. This is a fun industry and allows you to do that.
How was it getting started? You were a startup before the word startup even existed. What were your first early days?
I'm glad you say that way, because I keep saying that when we started, the word entrepreneur was not there. No one talked about entrepreneurs, right? Or startups. So when you were approach someone and you say, I'm an entrepreneur, or an entrepreneur company, whatever, entrepreneurship, they will say, no, you're unemployed, and it sounds sexy to say that you're an entrepreneur. But the truth is that we started in the mid-'80s. That's why when you said 20 years, I like that, because you might think my age is different, but the truth is we started in mid-'80s. And we saw this opportunity. What we said is we started in Mexico. We used to work for a very important company in Mexico that had this area that supported the whole industrial group that they have, that corporation. And we saw the opportunity to say there is no other IT company in Mexico, and IT services is growing so much. So what we said is, let's start our own company. We didn't have any money, and startups were not there. So you can also imagine there was no angel, whatever, capital, things like that, private funds for this kind of company. So we did it with our own resources. And what we did is, since we were not able to pay you a salary, what we'll say is join the company as a shareholder, as a partner. And you'll be amazed, surprised of the kind of time that we were able to attract at that time, because they love the idea. Think about Latin America. If you take a look at the list of probably the largest 100 companies, most of them are family owned, still family owned, of 3 generations. So then you come up late 80s and you approach those private universities and you tell them, but we can start our own company. And those very bright kids will look at you and say, can we do that? And so we started that way with a very ambitious vision. And it was a very bold statement, because from the very beginning, we said, let's build this global company. We want to compete globally. I said it was bold because it became a commitment. You couldn't go back, right? You said, we're going to be a global company, competing in every single country where there are opportunities. So I think the way that we built the company was with that mindset, in a certain way, from the beginning being global. The culture that we promote, it was global. It was very focused on values. Our culture, we feel very proud about our culture because it's very inclusive. Again, I told you, we're not family owned. There are so many partners in the company, so you have to make sure that we embrace all those different cultures, all those different values, and create your own culture.
You also created your own dictionary because you were global before globalization was actually popular, especially in Latin America. It didn't come for another 10 years.
Absolutely.
How have you navigated kind of the ebbs and flows of globalization as a company? Because there's times where, like now, that the world is more protectionist, and there's a time like in the 90s where every country in Latin America was opening up.
You're right. And I keep saying that in different interviews or speeches that I give. Those things like global, IT, entrepreneur, back in the late 80s were not necessarily something that you had in mind. And yes, we have been evolving. At the beginning, it was not so difficult to promote or to say that we're a global company. And the way that we'll do open operations in different countries, it was, yes, trying to bring all those, the value proposition that we have. But what we will do is we'll go to that country, think about Brazil or India or Argentina, pick any country. And what we'll do is we'll send 1 or 2 people from Softtek, and what we'll do is we did approach again universities, clients, with understanding their culture. I mean the local culture, because at the end it's different to do business in India than to do business in Brazil. So it was really offering, but you can have or leveraging all our global capabilities. And companies will like that. At the beginning, they would understand, no, I want you to be sitting right beside me. But then they understood how important it was that they could have access to those global solutions, global capabilities that we had. Things have changed, you're right, but we are in a very privileged industry. Again, I'm sure you know the demand, and I will keep on saying demand of IT professionals. It is incredible. We are a company of almost 15,000 people, and we have almost 1,000 open positions. Imagine this, almost 1,000 open positions, meaning that I'm looking everywhere for IT professionals, and we cannot find them. Our clients, they don't care if they are based in Argentina, in Spain, in Hungary, or in Brazil, or in Mexico, or in the US, whatever. So even though things are changing and being more, like you mentioned, more protectionist and not necessarily open for globalization, I think when it's related to talent, and again, going back to COVID, they don't really, I don't think that's going to change. They would like to leverage that talent. It's different to manufacturing. When you think about bringing back their, whatever, production lines to Americas, it's different, because then you want to bring that. But when you're just thinking about talent, you want the brightest talent, no matter where it is. It's not bringing that back.
So take note to our viewers that you're hiring 1,000 people.
Please do consider that. Do consider that, because we are. Send your whatever information. You have a job, and no matter where you're based, okay? No matter where you're based, we have a job for you.
That we didn't expect.
Right.
But talk to us a little bit about the challenges that you've faced over the years and the challenges that you're currently facing. You've just gone through, or the world has just gone through a tremendous global challenge. How does that translate into your day-to-day operations, and what others have you had in the past?
Yes, I have to say that we have faced challenges. I cannot deny that. Again, being a startup when there were no other startups, when you didn't have any capital, when you're a service company and you approach any financial institution asking for money, for capital, and they will look at you and say, but why am I going to support you? You have no assets whatsoever. So I wouldn't do that. So I would say at the early ages, it was very related to financial challenges. It was really that, because you needed probably the money to have that working capital to be able to offer a different kind of whatever proposal to those graduate from those private universities. It was very related to that. Challenges to position your company in different countries, that they could understand that we compete with the big 4, big 5, big 3, whatever the number is today. We never competed with local companies, never ever, not even regional. So the other challenge at the beginning, it was really related to position the company, right? Think about Accenture, IBM, they have been there forever. Or think about when we started competing with Indian vendors here in the US. They had been here forever. It was an Indian value proposition. It was not an Indian company. It was a whole country positioning that. So the second challenge at that time was positioning the company. And that evolved at the beginning with very specific kind of services, and then we came to the US, and it was a whole value proposition that it was very related to geopolitical advantages of Mexico and Latin America. And believe me, today probably the thing that keeps me awake all night, that I see as the most challenging thing that I see ahead, it's being able to attract talent. Believe me, that is true. I just mentioned the open positions that we have, and I think we're not the only ones facing this. I believe that in the past we didn't have money, so we said let's bring people as shareholders. Yes, we didn't have as many clients as needed, but then we start getting one, and we use that as a reference. But when you think about talent, and today that talent can be wherever, in Australia, sitting in this cafe in Paris or enjoying Argentina or whatever, Cancun, they have so many offers, so many opportunities. And when you don't have the opportunity to work close with them, to create or to make sure that they understand your culture, that you can offer a different kind of environment, the challenge is even bigger than it used to be, right? It's what do I offer? I mean, I work with the offer, with what we have to offer to our clients. That is true. That is very important. And we have been evolving the services. But again, we depend on that talent. And if we are not able to do that, to attract that talent and retain that talent, it's going to be tough. And to your point, when you think about COVID and working from home, it's difficult to create that kind of engagement, that kind of attachment. So you probably will be able to attract, but not necessarily retain, because they will receive an offer from Facebook, from Google, from Netflix, and they will say, you can work from whatever you want to. And they will say, oh, yes, I can do that. When they work within your facilities, they fall in love. I do believe they obviously they see the potential of what you are offering, the kind of job that you're offering, but they also start liking the culture. And you have that opportunity to create that kind of engagement. Not when they work from home, anywhere. It's probably today, I would say, the most important challenge, and probably I never felt this way before.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so you are a global company, but you're also a Mexican brand. How has your relationship been with the government in Mexico over the past 30 years?
It has changed because we can see the government from different perspectives, and not just in Mexico, but in other countries where we work with them. You see the government as, in some cases, as the one that should be fostering the industry, and in certain years they have been doing that. You also have to see the government from a different perspective, supporting any kind of effort, meaning the development banks that they have in different countries. And then you will see the government as a client, as in many, for IT services, governments are probably the largest consumer of IT services. How has this evolved? I think I'll start with the first. We supported the governments to understand, the Latin American governments, the Mexican governments, to understand the potential of this industry. Again, Latin America was not really involved in services. Forget about IT, not really involved in services. Mexico is perceived as manufacturing much more than anything. So at the beginning, it was supporting them in understand the potential of an industry, how this was a huge opportunity for those countries and create a different kind of jobs. But then I remember when we start approaching development banks, they would say, but you should feel very proud. We now understand the kind of resources that you need and that your contracts, because at the end, that's what it's behind the loans that we get, our client contracts. It's as strong as any other asset that you can have. So we also help Latin American governments to understand that it was needed. And finally, we have been very privileged. We support most of the most ambitious projects in governments like the Mexican government. If you take a look at the, trade, for example, what they call the single window for all the trade things that you need. If you think about the IRS, Mexican IRS, or the Social Security institution, we've been there. We've been supporting them. So I think it has been a very, I would say, good relationship. I keep trying convincing for the past 20 years, at least, if not 30, much more today, that let me use Mexico as an example. You know that we're highly recognized for tortillas, tequila, tourism, right? You know those three things. But now we have to move towards technology. I don't know if you have heard this present administration in Mexico, they keep talking about the 4T. Have you heard about that, the 4T? I have been asking the president, saying, you love 4T, right? 4T. Let's use it in a different way. Tortilla, tequila, tourism, let's add technology. We should do that. So we should keep on working with governments in different countries to help them understand, again, potential, what is needed, the kind of opportunities that can be open when you really support the industry. And hopefully we'll keep on working with them.
So there's another word that you probably coined many before it was popular, which is nearshoring, which is incredibly popular now as we've seen the disruption in the supply chains around the world. And many countries, I think pioneered by Mexico, are trying in Latin America to rechannel the supply chain so that some of that work and some of that capital and some of that job creation can occur in different parts of the world, not in Southeast Asia or China, but in Latin America. How did you come up with that, and what was the response? Because then it was probably just tech. Now it's all kinds of goods and services that are nearshoring or friendshoring, which is another popular word.
Well, nearshore is a trademark. Like you mentioned, we coined it as a company. We did that in late 90s, 97 as a matter of fact. The reason why we call it that way, we look at the US as the most important, most appealing market. And we said, we're small, we're probably the largest already in Latin America, but very small compared to any other company that was really very well positioned in the US. So we said, we have to approach the market with a very differentiated proposition, because we cannot compete face-to-face with Indian vendors or with IBM if we offer the same thing. We're going to lose the game. So we start thinking, let's try to understand our geopolitical advantages, leveraging those advantages, tackling to a certain degree the deficiencies of the offshore model, and let's call it nearshore. Because if we call it nearshore, we're gonna, in a certain way, the market will understand that we have all the advantages of the offshore model, but also leveraging being near, being close. Because nearshore, back at that time, related to services, when I said geopolitical advantages, is yes, being close. Proximity was important. Time zone was important, working at the same time zone. Proximity meaning that if we had any kind of whatever thing that we wanted to agree, whatever work, it is a 2-3 hour flight as opposed to going to India, right? We were really targeting at that market. Let's offer services from a nearby location. Nearshore is that, working or offering services from a nearby location, a more cost convenient. So it was, at that time, it was offering services from Mexico to the US. Interesting probably for you to know that we hire this marketing agency to help us in a certain way position the term. And they look at us, I mean, after $300,000, imagine late 90s, we didn't have as much money. It was a lot of money. And when they finished the project, they told us, no, don't use nearshore. It's not the way that you want to position your company, because they will probably just think about the disadvantages of the offshore model. Think about something else. And I remember walking out of that room, my team, and we look at each other and say, we're going to use nearshore, right? So after 20 years, no, probably early 2003, they understood the value of this. And then Indian vendors decided to come to Mexico and said, oh, we also offer nearshore. And then the word changed to global sourcing, and you should offer it. All those offshore, on-site, onshore, whatever. So when they start talking about nearshore, not just related to services, I really felt very proud. I wanted to call that agency, I don't know if they still exist, and ask them, do you remember when you told us not to use that term? Today it's mainstream, and it's not just related to IT. And what it's important, it's to understand that it's not just convenient. It makes sense, because at the beginning when Indian vendors came here, or even other Latin American companies start offering services to the US, they will say, it is more convenient. But convenience should not be the only advantage. The market wants to have a very competitive proposition, and they have to really understand that this is leveraging that competitiveness by being more productive. And so it is not about convenience. I mean, convenience is there, but it should be because you do have a more competitive, more appealing proposition. And incredible now that they use supply chains and everything related to nearshore. We are very proud. let me tell you, I'm very proud, very proud.
To your next word or concept that is going to be popular in 20 years.
We'll see.
So here at the Americas Table, we like to end our interviews with a few lessons from our guests about leadership. And I'm sure you have a few to share with our viewers.
Yeah, well, I think the series in this very specific time, it's so important because leadership after the kind of crisis, well, the crisis that we still, not after, we're still going through this crisis related to COVID. Leadership, it's so important when you face those kind of challenges. It's very easy to be a leader when everything's going so smoothly and fine, right? It's difficult to differentiate a good leader from a bad leader, from my perspective. But when you're facing a crisis, that's when all those, I wouldn't say skills, but more values, I like much better values than skills, are very obvious, right? One thing for me, it's leaders should be very inclusive. If you want to be a true leader, you have to understand all those skills, all those strengths that your team have, and in order to really leverage those. So first of all, you have to be a very inclusive. If you're going to be a good leader, identify the strengths of your team. Have the empathy, and this past 2 years, that has been very important. In the past, leaders will never mention empathy, but empathy is understanding not just, oh, how I feel about you. It's really understanding the whole environment and what is needed, and making sure that you can approach your community, your company, your employees, your shareholders in what they need, what it's concerning for them. So empathy was the other one that it's, for me, one thing that it's very important. Being very transparent. Today, you cannot be any other way. The people are concerned. They want to know what's going on, good or bad. And they want to see that you're in control, that you do understand the challenges, but that you, as a team, have the strengths to face those challenges. I mean, leadership has been evolving, right? There are things that have been there and will still be there. But if you think about the leaders of today, they have a very strong vision. They do understand how important it is to build a team and being able to leverage the strengths of that team, to have the understanding, the empathy of the things that could be concerning for them, or how you can make them move towards what you believe it's important. To be very transparent. You cannot today lie about that, and again, give them opportunities so they can be part of whatever solution you need.
Blanca Treviño, CEO of Softtek, and definitely a visionary and such an enthusiastic guest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much again. It was my pleasure, and thank you for including me in this kind of series that I believe are very, very important this time.